just take a picture. No, there it goes. Mandrake is summoned to a council. What kind of council? Louder? Okay, magical. What else? Page 172. Mandrake was ordered to appear before the council 3 days later to summon his slave for interrogation. Okay? But he knows it's more than just summoning his slave. He knows he's in trouble. Okay? So, he starts to wonder, why did I let Bartimaeus go? Page 173. He should have squeezed it out of his slave without a second thought. But he'd let him go. It was absurd. The jinni was nothing but a thorn in his flesh. How simple it should have been. Sentimental and weak. Yeah, maybe she was right. Maybe I am sentimental and weak. But the sight of the jinni's small, broken body had shocked him too much. It had prompted an impulsive reaction. And this, notice, italics, was the shattering event, far more significant than the threats in spite of his colleagues. This top of page 174. For years, his life had been a fabric of calculations. Why? Fabric, like a tally sheet of calculations. Calculations for what?
Power.
What's John want? Prime Minister. I mean, let's face it, that's what he wants. He wants the power. Okay? So, everything he had done was calculated towards getting more and more power. It was by remorseless dedication to work that Mandrake derived his identity. Spontaneity had become alien to him. But now, in the shadow of his single, unconsidered action. Unconsidered means he didn't think about it. What did he act out of? Was it just impulse? Here's no, no. So if it's not that, then what's he acting out of? Heart. If it's not thought, it's something else.
Isn't that kind of impulse?
Can be. Impulsive, however, can just be, rashness. It can be instinct. I don't think it's instinct that he's acting out of. Because notice what we're told. Seeing the sight of the jinni's small, broken body. What's he feel for it? Compassion. Pity. So, now, prospect of work suddenly did not appeal. Elsewhere this morning, armies were clashing, ministries were humming, much to be done, and he feels listless, floating, suddenly detached from the demands of his name and office. That is, he doesn't feel connected anymore. It's almost like he's over here. Okay? And he thinks about a thought that he had the night before. An image sitting with his tutor, Ms. Lutchens, long ago, happily sketching. The vision flickers and it vanishes. The room was bare and cold. Notice, the image is of with a long-lost art teacher who he loved. And what's he left with? His cold doctor's office-like sterile office. Youth? Now, he's still young, but, relatively speaking. Okay? We find out Jane Farrar raises an official complaint. Okay? We also find out that, or we've found out a little bit earlier, he and Quentin Makepeace have gotten to be pretty good friends. Okay? Up until now in the novels, who or what is Quentin Makepeace? What's his role? Playwright, theater nut. Egotistical, right? He thinks everything he writes is the greatest thing there is, and a lot of it's just schlock, and it's just garbage. All this romantic nonsense. Okay? So, he and Nathaniel talk. He tries to lighten his spirits and such. So, they go to Makepeace's, and he asks him, tell me what it is you're doing, page 181. So we see two circles no longer representing the other place in here. These are now pentacles, right? Circles for pentacles. And we see a commoner being tortured. Page 181. Very bottom. Makepeace lowers his hands. He looks at Mandrake. Now then, he takes a step forward. John says, "Wait, you fool, you're the demon," because he's about to step into the circle. Calm and slow as a noonday cat, Makepeace stepped out of his circle and into the other. Nothing happened. Mr. Drew, wake up. No time for sleeping. So he tells him, the commoner tells him his name. Okay. And he asks the commoner, "What's your other name?" Now, Nathaniel's standing there going, "What do you mean, what's his other name? Like he has a middle name?" Because he said, "Nicholas Drew, what's your other name?" "Borello." "And what's your occupation, Nicholas?" "Shop worker." "And what's the shriveling fire?" And Nicholas tells him. And John's like, "Wait, how would he know that?" Very good. Okay. John says it's a trick, right? This is some kind of sleight of hand thing. It's more than a trick. The demon has lodged itself within the man. It is trapped inside as if it were inside the pentacle. That's why Makepeace could go from his circle to the circle Nicholas Drew is in. Because the demon isn't just in the circle, it's in the person. Okay? Did you not hear? The demon's knowledge is at the man's command. Suddenly he knew the meaning of the shriveling fire. He had knowledge. "I'm not sure about this. He's an unwilling victim. He's a commoner. He can't properly use the demon's information." What does he mean? Because he's a commoner, what does he not understand? What secret do the magicians keep from the commoners?
The source.
The source of their power, which is demons. So, if Nicholas Drew understood that, theoretically, in this passage, what could he do?
More powerful.
He could attack them. Because he has the power of the genie in him. But he doesn't realize that. Why else? He's not totally in control. Okay? He hasn't subjugated the demon's will to his own. Okay? And we see Nicholas Drew start to do some things. Mandrake asks, what's he doing? Makepeace. Perhaps he senses the demon inside. Perhaps it talks within him. That is, maybe he's hearing voices. Okay? You have used others, one only, a volunteer. That union has worked extremely well. Okay, this is Makepeace saying that. Because Nathaniel's saying, who else has done this? A volunteer has. And that one's, we notice we don't know who that is yet. So, what does Nathaniel think about this? He's horrified by it. Why? What's it take away from the commoner? Free will. Doesn't seem to have any problems taking away free will from the demons by summoning them. You know, what's the difference? Well, the commoner has had the demon put in him. In summoning demons, the demons are forced to come from over here. And what do they have to take on over here? They have to take on some kind of physical form. It's just they're not put into a human. But it's still denying them their free will. Okay? And Nick Drew reveals what? Kitty's still alive. In fact, she's no longer Kitty Jones. What does she go by now? Clara Bell. Page 185. And then we go back to Bartimaeus, chapter 14. Okay? And he's being summoned. Okay. And there she is, page 189, Kitty Jones. He's like, I can't believe this. He asks her, okay, who's doing this? How did you survive all your other summonings? That is, how did you live even after your first one? Because I'm not your first one. You had to build up to me, right? Well, who else summoned Bartimaeus first try? Daniel did. Okay. She says to him, 192, this is just a means to an end. I'm not interested in the things that the magicians want. You don't have to worry about that. He's like, yeah, right. And I certainly don't want to subjugate enslaved spirits, if that's what you're thinking. He says, yeah, right. Okay. Page 193. Okay. Let's see. He takes a different shape because he's, been doing rude things with his body. And she tells him, I want you to listen very carefully. 194. She tells him what she's been doing for 3 years. And he says, wait, you've learned all this in just 3 years? How long did it take John? He started becoming a magician at the age of 5. And he first summoned Bartimaeus when? When he was 11? Took him 6 years. Took her 3. Okay? Yeah, he was also learning everything else, because what does she not know yet? That ancient Greek. Okay, because she's going to ask him later on. She's going to ask John later on. Okay? She says, no, I wasn't after any old demon. I wanted you in particular. Why? You seem surprised. Personality, sparkling conversation. She says, well, yeah, not your personality, but what we talked about before. Okay? 194, 195, they talk more. And she says, you told me about civilizations come and gone. What idea did that spark in her mind? To break the cycle. Not just break the current magician's government. Break it how? Break the cycle completely. Stop it where people come into power as magicians, they then enslave demons. Commoners rise up eventually, they overthrow the magicians, they become the magicians. Commoners rise up, overthrow magicians. She wants to totally destroy that cycle. Okay? So, they keep talking. He asks, how did you learn to summon me? She talks about, books she'd read and such. 197, she talks about the things she knows can happen to her if she misdraws the circle or the pentacle, mispronounces a name, etc., etc. Okay? And then she says, page 199. Actually, no, 198. Bartimaeus is talking. She's trying to get a word in edgewise, and he's just running on and on at the mouth. She says, he says, who set out to learn the cursed arts without prompting, without coercion? You can say this much for Nathaniel and the rest. They didn't have any choice in the matter. Right? When his parents sold him to become a magician, his destiny, so to speak, was set for him. He couldn't choose not to become a magician. But you could have taken a dozen different paths. Really? What kind of paths could she have taken? Outside London. But she would always be what? A nobody. And instead you decided to enslave Bartimaeus, Sacral Jenny, the serpent of silver plumes, wolf-jawed guardian of the Iroquois, and in your arrogance you consider I'll do you no harm. Well, let me tell you, young madam, you underestimate me at your peril. I'm master of 1,000 tricks, 100 weapons. I can, okay? So, he says, by summoning me, you've redefined our roles. There can be nothing but hatred between us. She says, come on, get out of here. How else was I supposed to get hold of you? I want to discuss something as equals. Well, when was the last time that happened with Bartimaeus? Ptolemy. He says, he mentioned Nathaniel. She says, who's Nathaniel? Who? Never, you just referred. No, you must have misheard. Equality is impossible between humans and jinn. You are young and foolish, so perhaps I shouldn't be too hard on you, but the notion is misguided. What about you and Ptolemy? So she just throws that question out there. Kitty knew immediately her theory had been correct. The jinn's response told her so. Since his accident at the margins of the pentacle, the young Egyptian boy had been facing her. Chest and chin thrust out. Hands sweeping this way and that to illustrate his expansive statements. As soon as she spoke, however, all his blustering and bravado instantly ceased. A great stillness came over him. The face became quite frozen, the body utterly transfixed. Only the eyes moved, slowly, very slowly. The pupils shifted to fix their gaze on her. The boy's eyes had always seemed dark. Now, black, cold, infinite. Why? What's she seeing looking into his eyes? The other place. It was terrible yet beautiful. She was drawn to it as a child to a window. She'd been sitting safely in the center of her pentacle. Notice, so she's got a buffer of space around. He can't hurt her. Now she half uncrossed her legs, leaned forward, supporting herself on one arm, stretching out the other, reaching up slowly toward the eyes, toward their solitude and emptiness. So, he's standing here looking directly at her. She's looking at the eyes. She had been sitting cross-legged. Now her legs are out straight. She's up on one hand and she's reaching with the other. What's she about to do? If she puts her finger like that, all bets are off. The boy blinked. Why? Why does he blink? Who's the boy? Bartimaeus, as Ptolemy. His eyelids flicking like a lizard's. The spell was broken. Because if he hadn't blinked, she would have broken the pentacle. Question is it really a spell? Her hand jerked back. She shrank. Notice, she pulls back, way back, into the center of the circle. What do you presume to know about me? And notice, the voice doesn't come from right here. Where does it come? The whole room. It had sounded all around her, not loudly, very near at hand, a voice different from any that she had heard before. It spoke in English, but the inflection was odd, as if the tongue found the language alien and strange. It sounded close, but also not so, as if dredged up from some incalculable distance. What do you know? The Jinnee's lips were still, the black eyes locked on her. And what have we just been told about this voice? It's a Bartimaeus' voice. It's Ptolemy's voice. Notice, it's speaking English like Bartimaeus does, but it's not speaking the same kind of English. The accent is different. Okay? Look at it again. The inflection was odd, as if the tongue found the language alien and strange. It sounded close, but also not. Whose voice is it? I could be wrong. I think it's really Ptolemy. See, Quentin Makepeace thinks he's done something new. I don't think so. Something new. Putting a demon in the body of a person. I don't think so. When Ptolemy opened the gate, what happened? He went over. He called Bartimaeus. He and Bartimaeus met. Okay? We do see Ptolemy does die. Does he totally die? Or in the process of dying, does he come over here? And is Ptolemy, big question, should have thought of this for the exam, is Ptolemy's essence now connected with Bartimaeus? What do you know? Notice, Bartimaeus' lips aren't moving. Well, that's not a big deal. He's a demon. He can do magic. Okay? The black eyes locked on her. Kitty hunched herself against the floor, trembling. Why? Because this is some kind of like ventriloquist act? I think Kitty thinks this is Ptolemy. It did not speak violently or with anger quite, but it was a voice of power from a far-off place, a voice of terrible command, and it was a child's voice too. Go back for a moment to page 165, which is where Ptolemy and Bartimaeus are dealing with the king's son, Ptolemy's cousin. The king's son is being a jerk because he doesn't trust Ptolemy. And Ptolemy says, I beg you. No, there will be no argument. The slave will die. Who's the slave? Bartimaeus. Then I must tell you. My master was suddenly very close to his British cousin. He seemed somehow taller, equivalent height. His dark eyes gazed directly into the other's weary ones. And what does he say? The king's son quailed, shrank from him. His soldiers and attendants shifted uneasily. The sun's warmth dimmed. Courtyard grew cloudy. One or two of the soldiers had goose pimples on their legs. You will leave him alone. He is my slave, and I say he deserves no punishment. Leave with your lackeys and return to your wine vats. Your presence here disturbs the scholars and brings no credit on our family. Your insinuations likewise. Do you understand? And the king's son backs away. What does that show us? You don't mess with Ptolemy. He's got power. Is that power from Bartimaeus? No. Okay. Then we get paid back to 201. Tell me. Now there was anger in the voice. As it spoke, a great noise sounded in the room, a thunderclap. Stuff starts swirling around. Okay. The walls are moving, tearing from their sockets in the floor, etc., etc. The ceiling is gone, notice. And the awful immensity of the night sky stretched above with stars and moons spinning and the clouds being drawn out into pale white threads, shot in all directions. Now, is all that literally happening? I don't think so. I think it's metaphorical. Or, what is Kitty being introduced to? What is she seeing? Because his eyes are still fixed on hers. Yeah, she's cowering, but I don't think she's been able to break her vision away. Okay. Please stop. Please. And it stops. She opens her eyes, all was quiet, and then there's the boy, moving now, bending his legs. His eyes are closed. He passes a hand in front of his face. With his voice back to normal, he says, if you're going to summon jinn, you summon their history with them. It's wise to keep matters firmly in the present for fear of what you might awaken. Don't talk to me about Ptolemy. It's kind of like, that's my secret. You don't. Okay? She says it was just a name. A name you ought to know what names can do. So, she says, but you could have chosen anyone. Why do you keep choosing this form? And they go on. She talks about how she figured out Bartimaeus' real name. And in page 205, the boy says, what is it you want from me? Notice, keep saying the boy, not Bartimaeus. Previously, she had viewed the guys merely as a mask, a costume, one illusion among many. Now, she could not help but sense the ancient presence, that the demon was reproducing the boy accurately, she had no doubt. Why? For the first time, she notices he's got 2 moles on his neck. Well, who's going to notice moles on somebody? You're only going to notice those little things, what? If you were around them an awful lot and you care. Okay? There's a devotion to detail here that could only come with genuine affection, perhaps even with love. So she says, I just want you to listen fairly to what I have to say. Okay? So what does she want Bartimaeus to listen to? What is she essentially kind of proposing? How? She wants to do what Ptolemy did. She wants to prove to him. Okay? All right, we'll stop there and we'll finish it or not on Monday. If we don't, I'll put a lecture up. I'll have to make one because I found out I don't have any, even though I've taught this book before. So I'll let you know.